Win big with new DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code ONEFREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, October the 5th. It's race number 10 at Keeneland. We're going 1 mile on the turf. It's the Grade 1, $1.25 million Coolmore Turf Mile. Before we take a look at the field, remember we've got a great deal available for DRFTV viewers, 10% off all DRF past performances. Use the coupon code DRFTV10. Shop now using that QR code. Here's the field for the Coolmore Turf Mile. Remember to access your free Formulator past performances for the race of the day on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. We've got a field of 9 for the Coolmore Turf Mile. Could be a nice prep for the Breeders' Cup Mile. Chad Brown has 3 in here, including Carl Spackler, who won the 4-star Dave last time out in very nice fashion.
Seemed like a real breakthrough for Carl Spackler last time, Dan. He got a perfect trip in that race, but he really ran, and the race came back fast. He started out with potential. He's always been a good horse. Felt like he might have really taken that step forward a lot of people were expecting last time.
A couple European invaders in here, the 1 Mountain Bear, the 2 Kikkuli. It doesn't look like there's a ton of early speed in this race, so we'll take a peek at the Timeform US pace projector and see where Timeform US has them after the first half mile or so. They believe this race could favor front runners. Talk of the Nation was on the lead in the Kelso 3 starts back when finishing second to Carl Spackler. I can see him up close. Spirit of St. Louis, the New York bred, is another tactical type. But it's not like Carl Spackler, some slowpoke. He figures close to the pace as well.
Yeah, I would say, just based on this Timeform US pace projector, and we'll see how it plays out on the track, but just based on this, advantage Carl Spackler. He's going to be forward in this race. He'll be sitting right up close if they're not going fast. It's just a big advantage to him.
Maybe noise is off will show a little bit of speed as well, getting the blinkers back on. We'll start things off with one of the European entrants. That's the number 1 Mountain Bear, who already has shown that he could ship and run well to North America. He was second in last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I just wonder if he's gotten much better this year at 3. His most recent start was in a Group 2 in Ireland, and he came with a belated run to finish 3rd that day. At least his form does seem to be improving for a great trainer in Aidan O'Brien. To me, what's most notable about his PPs is when you run him on a left-handed course, whether it's on synthetic or turf, that's where his best races come.
Yeah, that's true. I think he's a contender in this race. His running style is a little problematic, Dan, because he's always coming from the back in his races. So that might not work out. But I thought his most recent start was fine, behind his stablemate, Diego Velasquez, who's a really good 3-year-old, 2 starts back. That was a good performance, but that was not a fast pace. He was last. He was really running there, but they were just sprinting through the stretch and he couldn't get up.
But you mentioned one of the major issues. Sometimes he doesn't break with the field. Most Europeans don't anyway. He could be last early, and if this pace is not fast, he might have too much to do. Kikkuli comes in from Europe. Frankie Dettori picks up the mount. While he's eligible still for a Nominers of 2 life race, he's in pretty good form. He finished 4th in a blanket finish last time out, going 7/8 of a mile, a race where the runner-up came back to place in a Group 3. I thought Kikkuli had his chances in that race. He sat a tactical trip. He split horses. He just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too, Dan. I mean, ultimately, he was the favorite in that race. He seemed very well spotted. He had a chance to win, and he just wasn't quite good enough. And that's so far, he's a half brother, to the great Frankel. And so far, that's just been the story of his career, man. He's run fine in all of his races, but for the most part, he's just not getting the job done. Even in the Jersey, that Ascot race in June, he just missed in there. He had every chance to win, and I got beat on the square. I thought Mountain Bear ran better than he did in that race.
More than looks, the number 3 is certainly talented enough to win a race like this. The question is, does this late runner get the setup? I thought he ran really well in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year to only be beaten 2 lengths, and it took Cherie DeVaux a long time to get him back to the races. They ran him in the 4-star Dave last time out, and considering it was his first start in, 9 months, a race that didn't have a lot of pace, and Carl Spackler, who had recency, also got the jump on him, he ran just fine for second.
I agree. I think it's just with everything that was working against him, and that wasn't even the race that DeVaux wanted to run him in. She wanted to prep him in a different race, and that got canceled, so they had to run him in the Grade 1. Considering all that stuff, he ran really, really well in there. He was just never going to beat Carl Spackler that day, especially with the trips factored in. Very encouraging, though, first start off the long left, because this horse is good, Dan, and if he moves forward in here, It's going to take a little bit of a setup for him, but he will be flying at the end of this race.
Running B, the number 4, is in very underrated form. He won the Monmouth Stakes 3 starts back in dead heat fashion, and then they just tried a distance that's too long for him in the United Nations 2 starts back. They dropped him in distance. They dropped him a little bit in class for the Bernard Baruch last time out, going a mile and a 16th. Running B showed some tactical speed to sit just off the pace. He gets to the outside and he grinds them down. I do wonder if a mile's a little sharp for him.
Yeah, me too. He was good in here. He got a really good trip in this race, and unfortunately, especially for guys like us, because we're old now, but the Baruch just isn't the race in Saratoga anymore. Nobody points for it. It's not a super strong field here, but he's much the best in that race. I think this horse is really moving in the right direction. This just happens to be a way tougher spot.
Noises Off is very consistent. He's hit the board in his last 5 starts, and he just got wired by a super sharp horse, Goliad, who seems to really love that Kentucky Downs turf course. He not only won that $500,000 race over Noises Off, but then came back to win the Grade 3 Mint Million with a 100 buyer speed figure.
Yeah, listen, he runs really well in this race. I'm not going to take anything away from him. It's a new buyer top, and by the way, his prior buyer top also came at Kentucky Downs. So that's one of the things that I don't really like about him, Dan, as well as he runs here. It didn't necessarily make me want to reconsider him because his other races at the other tracks, just don't make him good enough, I don't think, to beat this field.
He was wired in a slow-paced race that day, and the blinkers come on. Maybe he can be a little bit more forward. Talk of the Nation goes out for Todd Pletcher. He was beaten by Carl Spackler in the Kelso when he made the lead, and then they tried to stretch him out in the Arlington Million, and I just think 1.25 miles is a little bit too far for him. And then last time out, where he got beaten the Mint Million by the aforementioned Goliad, maybe Kentucky Downs, even though he's run well, maybe that day wasn't there for him. That being said, well, I think Talk of the Nation can work out a good trip. I think he probably needs to run one of his best races.
Yeah, me too. I think he's just going to have to maybe run the best race of his life to win here. And listen, I'm willing to, not be too hard on him for the last 2 races in particular, but the Kelso and prior to that, the opening verse, there are 2 races where this horse had all the best of it both times, loose on the lead. The paces weren't fast. Carl Spackler was better both times.
Cash Equity was claimed for $80,000 last year by Safi Joseph. He targeted Kentucky Downs. That's where the purses are, and this horse made money in both of those races. He was third to Goliad in the $500,000 race, then in the Mint Million. He ran a good second after being wired again. Let's watch Cash Equity. Goliad went to the front. Goliad skipped along on a fast pace. Cash Equity hung back, and he's going to make a good run to make it somewhat close at the wire.
That's what this horse does every single time, especially since claimed by Safi Joseph. I mean, he runs late every single time. I don't think he's the best closer in this race by any stretch of the imagination, but he's in good form right now. So I'm not surprised that they want to take a little bit of a shot here at a major race. I'm a fan of his, Dan. I just don't know if this is the right race.
The 8 is Spirit of St. Louis, who's just a really cool New York bred. 11 starts, 8 wins, 3 seconds, and he just got beat last time out in the West Point at odds on against fellow New York breds. Let's watch that race right now. Spirit of St. Louis looks like he's going to turn into the stretch, and he's going to run by everybody, and well, he runs by the horses in front of him. It's just that Dakota Gold's going to get him from the back.
Yeah, this is a little bit disappointing here. This is a horse who had just been dominating the New York bred turf horses for about a year. And this time he makes the lead, and he's just going to get run down at the end. So certainly a regression for Spirit of St. Louis. I'll be honest, Dan. I mean, I'm a little surprised that it's taken Chad this long to run him against, superior competition, because this horse has been in great form prior to that last one.
Carl Spackler, the number 9, has always hinted at talent, and he's now won 5 of his last 6 starts, including the 4-star Dave over More Than Looks. Let's watch Carl Spackler's performance. He got right up close to a moderate pace, turns into the stretch with his sights set on the pace setter, and this last 1/8 of a mile is some pretty good stuff. I know the pace was slow, but he really explodes the final 16th, and More Than Looks does very, very well after being pace compromised off the layoff for second.
Yeah, you can see More Than Looks running really well there to get into second and gaining a little ground. Dude, this horse, Carl Spackler, just dominated this race. He got a perfect trip in here, to be sure, but he dominated this race. The poker is a little hard to, figure out what happened there. It just didn't really run that well, but his other 3 starts this year, they're all really good.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time, Coolmore Turf Mile, Grade 1 on a big Saturday afternoon card at Keeneland. You're going back to Carl Spackler. He's consistent, he's tactical, he's well connected.
Yeah, I'm going to go right back to that 4-star Dave Exacta too, Dan. I mean, if there was a little more pace in here, I would be willing to give More Than Looks a chance to turn the tables this time. Not sure it's going to work out that way. Carl Spackler has been so good. I think he's going to get the right trip again, 9-3.
I'm expecting Carl Spackler to run another big race. I'm curious to see what we get from Mountain Bear. I'm very concerned that this race flow isn't going to work out for him. But again, I like him around these left-handed turf courses, and he did show a little bit of a kick last time out. Maybe a wake-up potential getting back to the States. I need double-digit odds. He has to be at least 10 or 12 to 1 for me to play him in this tough field. 9-3-1-7 for Mike, 1-9-2-3 for me. It's the Grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile, your Saturday race of the day. Good luck.
Hey friends, you look like you're in need of a winner. If you enjoyed the great content right here, just click and subscribe right here and enjoy the great DRF.com race of the days, the phenomenal stakes previews, and so much more. Many of that content featuring me and my exceptional selections. Trust me, you won't regret it.